Alsobrooks.
Thank you so much, Chair Cassidy. And for those who are wondering, I am not Bernie Sanders. I am Angela Alsobrooks. Ranking Member Sanders is unable to be here this morning, but I'd like to say a few words on behalf of the minority. Today, we are considering President Trump's nominee to be the Department of Secretary, the Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services, Jim O'Neill. We were also going to consider the president's nominee to be the next Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Jeanette Neshwat, a Fox News medical contributor and a graduate of medical school, but for whatever reason, President Trump abruptly withdrew her nomination yesterday afternoon. And as we all know, this is the second time that President Trump has withdrawn a nominee within our committee's jurisdiction. In March, he withdrew the nomination of Dave Weldon, who spent years lying about the safety and efficacy of vaccines to head the CDC about an hour before his hearing was set to begin. At any rate, Mr. O'Neill, thank you so much, sir, for being here today. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that in America today, we have a healthcare system that is broken, outrageously expensive, and horrifically cruel. We also spend twice as much per capita on health care as any other country on earth, over $14,500 per year. And despite these huge expenditures, we remain the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Over 85 million Americans are still either uninsured or underinsured. The result? Over 60,000 people in our country die each year because they cannot afford to go to a doctor when they should. More than 500,000 Americans go bankrupt due to medically related debt, and 1 out of 4 Americans cannot afford to buy the medicine their doctors prescribe. Sadly, as dysfunctional as our current healthcare system in America is, this administration and many of my Republican colleagues are actively working to make it worse. As we speak, Republicans in Congress are writing a, quote, reconciliation bill that would decimate Medicaid and throw millions of Americans off the health care that they have in order to give huge tax breaks to the wealthiest people and most profitable corporations in America. And let's be clear, when some of our Republican colleagues talk about cutting Medicaid by up to $880 billion, they are talking about making devastating cuts to community health centers, which rely on Medicaid for 43% of their revenue, mostly children, and provide primary health care to 32 million people. They're also talking about cutting funding for nursing homes, which depend on Medicaid for some 2/3 of their revenue. Further, since the president has been in office, 20,000 employees at the Department of Health and Human Services have been terminated or forced out, threatening the health care and well-being of millions of Americans who rely on Head Start, the Older Americans Act, Medicare, Medicaid, and LIHEAP. My home state of Maryland has been reeling from these cuts. Not only do we have over 150,000 dedicated federal civil servants in Maryland, but we are home to federal health agencies like NIH, FDA, SAMHSA, CMS, the Health Resources and Services Administration, and AHRQ. We need a Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services who will speak out against these devastating cuts and strongly oppose decimating Medicaid. All of us want to make the government more efficient. But we don't do this by slashing the agency in charge of the health and well-being of tens of millions of seniors, children, people with disabilities, working families, and the most vulnerable people in our country. We need a Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services who will fight to continue health care as a human right, not as a privilege, regardless of whether you are poor, working class, or wealthy. So, Mr. O'Neill, I have carefully reviewed your record and background, and unfortunately, it is very clear to me that you, sir, are not that person. And I am concerned that you will be just another rubber stamp for Donald Trump's rapid movement toward the destabilization of our healthcare system. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.